This is our Ohio OER on ODE, and I'm happy to have my entire team of co-authors here with us in the room today. So Anna Davis is going to start our presentation here in a moment. Justin Greenlee and Felipe Martins are also here. Anna, I guess I turn it over to you at this point.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So our project was sponsored by the Ohio Open Ed Collaborative, which was funded in 2017 by the Department of Higher Education in the state of Ohio. We have a lot of partnerships. Our lead institution on the grant is North Central State College. Our university partners are the Ohio State University and Ohio Dominican University. And we have over 20 community college partners. And we're also very fortunate to have Ohio Link as one of our sponsors and collaborators. Our differential equations course was developed with several ideas in mind. And one was that the course needs to be modular so that it can be broken up into parts and used as needed in different types of courses. We also wanted it to be interactive and to include hands-on activities for students. We also wanted to make sure that the course was appropriate for a variety of different institutions and instructional settings. We also have learning outcomes for the entire state of Ohio for many of our common courses, including mathematics courses. So we made sure that our differential equations course was mapped to those Ohio standards. And if you're interested, we have also developed other mathematics courses such as linear algebra, abstract algebra, calculus, and pre-calculus, and those are all available through Ohio Link, OER Commons, and the website is included here. And I think our presentation will be available at some point, so you can actually click on those links and access those materials. For our foundation, we chose the classic book by William Trench, and we actually converted it to a different format using the Chimera platform to make it a little bit more interactive. So let me tell you a little bit more about Chimera. It was developed by a team at the Ohio State University, and it's a wonderful way for students to experience interactivity. One of the things we really like about it is that it auto-grades exercises that take numeric as well as symbolic input. You can also embed things like Sage cells directly into Chimera and have students write their own code or evaluate existing code. You can also build in activities in GeoGebra and Desmos and embed them directly into Chimera. Our product is located through Ohio Link. It's located on OER Commons. And if you access it through OER Commons, you will find a quick adoption guide that talks about the philosophy behind the course and gives you direct links to things like the Ohio Standards and Trench's textbook. You also get our main course content and you get a link to the activities. And I think now I am going to hand it over back to Dr. Paul Zachlin.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, no, so I'm going to actually talk, my section of our talk is really talking about using this OER in your course. So I'm doing so right now. And as we said, you know, you're going to hear me echoing some of the things that Anna said, that we wanted to make it adaptable to a lot of different modalities and models. And so, you know, Felipe over at Cleveland State may have 200 students and I may have 6, but, you know, at the community college. But we find that we're able to use this product in both environments. You can use these OERs and using an inverted model if that's the type of classroom that you like to run. And as Anna pointed out, some of the features make this ideal for either online or hybrid courses. Just today, we're kind of on a hybrid model ourselves right now with the coronavirus. So I see my students on Wednesday, they took an exam, and today we were virtual. You know, that's part of what's happening nowadays. Anna mentioned some of the interactive components, and I thought maybe I could just share a few of those with you. exercises you complete, Sage Cells, Desmos Interactives. And one nice feature is that the Trench book has also been paired with MyOpenMath. So I'm actually using that for exercises this semester, and that's been a nice addition as well. So as far as the interactive elements, I thought maybe I could show you a little bit, but before that, let me do one other thing. Because not everyone here is from Ohio, and a lot of times our audience, we've talked this up in Ohio, but across the nation, one thing that we found is different is that our state has this Ohio transfer module. And so each course has a set of guidelines spelled out. Here you can see the one for differential equations. And these are the outcomes that are expected to be in a differential equations course in the state of Ohio. And this is to promote transferability. And so I've been serving on the committee for, one of the things we would do is just someone would submit a course and we approve it. But 70% of your time needs to be spent on the bold-faced objectives. And then the ones that are not bold-faced, those are other things that might appear in this course, okay? You'll notice there's a range of credit hours, right? So if you're on semesters like my institution, it could be a 3 credit hour course or a 4 credit hour course. Now I have 4 credit hours, which is more time with the students. Maybe it's more time for modeling and that kind of a thing. But I think this is a nice resource. When Anna mentioned we were mapping to something, this is what we're mapping to. But anyways, here's a section on slope fields. Now, again, the text this is identical to the Trench book, but now we have some interactive elements. So question 1 here, can the student tell me the slope? Is it 7? No. It'll keep asking me until I get it, right? But if I'm getting frustrated, I can reveal a hint, but it won't show me the hint for another 25 seconds or so. And down here we have the Sage cell. I just thought I'd show you, let's do a quick evaluate of this code, and it'll run for us and hopefully give us something here. Supposed to get a slope field. We'll see if my internet works well enough right now. And then the idea is that, as Anna said, you can go ahead and change parts of the code, so you can put in different functions and that kind of a thing. Yeah, never try it on the fly. Okay, let's go to this next part here. So Desmos interactives as well, and I thought I'd take us there. So this is a section, yeah, I'll just point out. So this is section 1 of Trench's book, which, 1.1, applications leading to differential equations. And I guess I'll tell you that since we have put the book into this module format, I just find that I'm able to get today's students to do more with it. So in the classroom, yeah, I had them go ahead, and after talking about the glucose absorption model, I had them play around with a little bit. Let's switch some of the constants, and let's see what's happening. Let's learn about limiting behavior. And it was just the coolest thing this semester to do that. And then I hear Sarah mention to her friend on the way out, I love a class where they start with models right away. They start with applications of this mathematics. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't done a lot of modeling and application in my class, but a little bit I think goes a long way. And again, just having the interactivity, where they could play around a little bit with the text really helps. Let me not do that. I'll do one last thing with you, which is today's lesson. We were just starting second order homogeneous equations. And again, another Desmos interactive. The question says, find values of C1 and C2 that'll give me a y-intercept of 0, 1, and the slope of the tangent line is 1. And so they're playing around with it a little bit, and they're trying the algebra, and it's fun stuff. So let me go back to the. Okay. Yeah, thank you, David Lipman. I don't know if you're here, but we're very grateful that you added the trench book to MyOpenMath, or I should say started a course, because this is a really nice resource. I know many of you probably use it for some of your math courses. If you haven't tried it, again, it's just a great way of getting some electronically graded homework. And so it's good to know that they have something. The course he created, he also included these video links. And if you've ever tried Math is Power for You, it's a pretty nice resource. I know I've used it for everything from developmental algebra, well, now through differential equations. But again, this will give me a video that explain, similar to the topic of the question. Students really like that. Okay, so I guess I'm on to Justin at this point. If you want to take over from here, you can talk a little bit about some of the modeling exercises that he added to these modules, and I'll let you take it from here, Justin.
Thanks, Paul. So I'm an engineer. I guess admitting is the first step. I'm not a mathematician here, so always feel a little bit out of place when I'm around a bunch of mathematicians. But the modeling applications were our contribution to trying to connect the math to reality in ways that are inexpensive, simple to apply, use ordinary things you could find around the home or dorm. And now it turns out they're actually pretty useful for remote instruction, which is all too common this past year. So I'm just going to highlight a few of those modeling applications that we developed, not all of them. But at first I wanted to kind of motivate that with this picture that I show my students at the beginning when we start doing models early on in our course. And it's basically a translation from reality to math and describing reality with math. So formulating differential equations. There are models, we solve them, we interpret the solutions, we test their predictions, and we kind of go around the circuit. So I'm trying to put this in the context of science and applied math in all of our work with various differential equations models. So okay, so these modeling applications, a couple I won't even mention. You've got your second order, linear oscillators, unforced stuff, pendulums. Spring mass systems. You can do those with relatively simple equipment you can find around the house. But today I'll just review the hot potato model and also the draining tank model. Some of you have seen Newton's law of heating and cooling applied in physical systems, and also the draining tank is probably something most people are familiar with. So I just want to go through, kind of highlight some of the key details of the activities that we wrote for students to do. And these can just as easily be done in class as a demonstration followed by a project or a replication with students. The hot potato model, it basically starts off with our Newton's law of heating and cooling, which we all sort of know and love. The basic idea here is students are putting a potato in the oven like they would cook it. You poke a few holes in it first with a fork because that steam pressure needs to be relieved. But they want to preheat the oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a good temperature. Leave it in there for an hour and then remove it and then predict how long it'll take before they can take a bite. So very practical concern. You're not going to cut the potato. You're just going to take it out of the oven. How long does it have to sit undisturbed in order to cool to 180 degrees Fahrenheit? And so during the heat up phase, which is an hour, they have enough time to take that data, to gather that information, and then also ultimately try to estimate that decay constant, that rate of proportionality, the K value in Newton's law of heating and cooling. That's kind of hard to do, but insofar as they can do that well, they'll predict this heating, and they have to deal with some of the non-idealities of a real system like this. It's not just your usual solid metal ball or a piece of ceramic ball in an oven. There's water content, so you're limited by ultimately, as long as there's water there being driven off, it's going to only go up to the boiling point of water, 212 Fahrenheit. There's a lag in the temperature, and students always see this in their data, and it's instructive for them to realize the outer temperature of the potato is hotter than the inside. As it begins to heat up, the potato is kind of, the temperature is lagging behind what just pure Newton's law of cooling with a uniform temperature assumption would predict. And then if they can use this data, and the activity kind of shows them the the fine details of estimating K, they can use that then especially to predict the amount of time it will take to cool to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. So on the cooling phase here, you know, in my data, we predicted like 18 minutes or 17 minutes of cooling, and it was right about there. It was plus or minus a minute from the prediction. Sometimes the students' predictions are 50% off, but it's still kind of instructive, and they get, you know, kind of competitive about trying to predict how long it'll actually take. There's that element. Now, so the tank draining model is something that you all probably have seen and used, or you know, at least referred to. It's something that can be done even more simply than the hot potato model. We poke a hole in a container. It has to have a constant cross-sectional area for simplicity's sake. You can do it otherwise, but it would be too complicated geometrically. You have to have a good idea of what that hole diameter is, what that area is. It doesn't have to be a circle, but it's easiest to poke it with a pencil, push pin, or a drill if you have one. And then you need to know the cross-sectional area of your tank. And you can predict with initial height of water above the hole how long it'll take to drain. I like to introduce, whenever I do problems like this where we're counting something that's changing continuously with time, I use this thing that was drilled into me as a chemical engineer. We can model any system by thinking about the rate in minus the rate out plus the rate of generation minus the rate of destruction. All of that summed up basically equals the first derivative of whatever we're counting as it's changing with respect to time. In this case, the water is conserved, density is constant, so the volume's conserved. Nothing's coming in, nothing's being generated, nothing's being destroyed. So the model kind of arises from that idea that what goes out basically causes a depletion amount of water. So we predict the draining time ultimately when we solve the differential equation, which is the first order nonlinear interesting problem. I think quite beautiful, actually. The nice thing I like about this model is that we can derive it in a class period. Takes, you know, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You got to introduce Bernoulli's equation, but it's fun to do. And the students get kind of motivated because you have this bottle in front of you. You tell them, I haven't tried this yet. We'll see how it works. And, you know, you poke that hole. You got to measure that hole as well as you can, maybe with calipers. But you make a prediction. And if the height of water in the tank is, let's say, 15 centimeters, maybe 10 to 15 centimeters, and the hole is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 centimeter, the bottle might take about a minute or so. You know, that's a rough idea to drain. So you make this prediction. While you're making that prediction, you have students volunteer to take the time, have a backup. You know, they all have their phones so they can time you. Somebody can take a video or a picture. And, you know, most recently, we actually did this in my class last week. I think we predicted like 41 seconds. We hadn't measured the hole quite well enough, and it was actually more like 55 seconds to drain. So it's a lot of fun to do that. And again, these things can be used in class, but then you can send the students off to do the activities themselves. At the end, you know, you go back to talking about the sources of uncertainty in these models. So that's just a highlight of some of these activities that we developed and put into this course to really connect differential equations to realistic applications. And that's about all I have. And I think we're, you know, probably have a couple minutes for questions.
Yeah, I just, again, you know, thanks Brian Winkle for inviting us to present and share what we did. But yeah, I think we have time for questions.
I will ask a question. I teach differential equations at a community college in Virginia, and I'm looking into developing an OER course, and I like your activities a lot. I actually do coffee cooling activities in class, and it's a lot of fun. Students really enjoy it. But if I wanted to adopt the course, is it possible? How do I go about that? That's my question.
I think I might be able to answer that question. In our presentation, we have a link to something called Ohio Link OER Commons. Does anyone know if these presentations are going to be automatically available to everybody? If not, I am going to share it right now and put the link to the presentation in the chat. And,
perfect. And yes, Brian is going to also share a link later, but yeah, put it in the chat.
You can share the quick start guide as well.
Yeah, the quick start guide is actually part of OER Commons. So I think that I'm trying to navigate the system here. If you would forgive me for just a second. All right.
And I'll ask a follow-up question. Thank you for these. How good is this MyOpenMath component of it? Do they have? I started looking at it right now as you were talking, but didn't explore it in detail. So, are you happy with OER with MyOpenMath for this course?
So I would say that it's a great start. Now, when I teach the course, I supplement with another textbook. I'll tell you what I did. I mean, community college, my students are there because they need the low cost. I mean, cost is a real concern, as you know. And so years ago, as I was looking around at what different people around the state were doing, somebody was using a Dover book by Tenenbaum and Pollard, an old book from Purdue, which is excellent. I mean, it has all kinds of stuff. It lacks a little of the modern approach. We like the Trench book, which has a great view of Laplace transforms, which is something that our students need. But I also supplement with this really old school book, and I have those in my library. So my students are doing the MyOpenMath, but they're also doing written homework from the book. There's a little bit of both going on.
Thank you.
Any more question, anybody? Like we have 5 minutes. Okay, so I have a question. Good, yeah.
I just posted another link directly to Ohio link OER Commons, and this has our adoption guide, and this is a more direct link to everything.
Thank you so much.
So Dr. Zachlin, you mentioned about the graded homework system in ODE, and you use Kent, that's what you mentioned? Like for a
Chimera?
Yeah. Like, could you please explain more on that, like graded homework system on ODE? Like,
oh yeah, so I'm using MyOpenMath, and if you're not familiar with MyOpenMath, let's see.
So is it like specifically available to people who have access to that open math courses?
MyOpenMath's available to anyone. It's open source. You can take a course and modify it to become your own. That's basically what I've done with it. Is you know, it's being created as we're going as well. But the other thing is Chimera also has the ability, and Anna could comment on this a little more than I could, to just moderate for completion. So for example, if you're using an inverted course model, and maybe I could share my screen one more time to show that. When you're on one of these pages, there's up at the top, these green bars tell you how much of this you've completed, okay? And I can erase my progress on a particular section. And but again, as I read through it, and so there's actually a grade book at the beginning of Chimera that grades for completion. So some people have used that for their homework. My class is so small, that's not something I need to do. But it's an option. For example, at Ohio State, I know they use this Chimera system exclusively for their math classes.